What else? Let's see. There was
I
one
see a
other
good
question.
question here
Yeah,
from Nauman. Why don't you put this one on the screen, Chris? He says, Harry, I say this with respect to all the panel. Why do you guys keep referring to per hour pay?
interesting.
So I think
Okay.
that's a good question because
Yes.
obviously most jobs people are paid hourly, right? You go work at McDonald's, it's like here's how much you're paid per hour. If you go to more of a salary job, like when I
Yep.
used to work at Boeing, it was an annual salary, but you're still kind of expected to work 40 hours per week, so you can kind of back calculate your pay. But I do agree, like when you get into more of like a salary job, you think of it more as like a salary and less of a per hour. But in like frontline work, service work, it's usually thought of on a per hour basis. Sergio, why do you think about your pay per hour? And then I
I
can answer
I
that.
don't think it per hour, honestly. The only
Hmm.
reason I've written an article a couple of months ago about my profitability matrix,
Hmm.
which are fourfold, right? I have to hit all four if I'm going to go out and drive. It's not going to be just one. So a lot of people look at the online hours or active hours, which Uber displays on the driver app. To me, that's bogus, honestly, because you left the house to me, the most honest way of looking at your earnings is what time did you leave your garage and what time did you return to your garage. To me, that's the most honest one. And the second best one that's going to tell you if you're a successful driver or not, besides when you left your house and when you came back home, is how many miles you drove and how much money you made per mile. I mean, if you're making buck a mile, I think it's pretty low. If you're doing certain strategies, taking advantage of the incentives, and you're about $2 and above with these gas prices today, I think you're doing okay. So to me, I look at all four. When I finish my shift for a week, I'll put them all on a spreadsheet and I say, I hit this number. I didn't hit that number.
Wait,
Why
that's
didn't I hit
confusing. Say that all over again, really
that?
quickly.
Okay. Well, I mean, to me, four things. You look at four things:
Quickly.
online
One,
hour,
online
active
hours.
hour, door to door, and dollars per mile.
Dollars per mile. Okay. Well, I think that I like that. I mean, I think you have to have some. So I think what actually a lot of drivers do is sort of what Nauman was saying. He's saying, I set a goal of $100. I need to make $100 because I've got bills to pay, and it's pretty easy. It's like, I go make 100, I can cash that out, and boom, right? And honestly, I think that's the easiest method, and that's what maybe half of drivers do, right? Because it's so easy. But like you said, it doesn't really take into account your expenses. Gas might be somewhat easy to take into account because it's like you got to go pay for gas. So it's like, all right, I got
Yeah,
to make 100 minus half a tank of gas, right? So it's somewhat simple, but it doesn't take into account your expenses. And
yep,
then what you and I, Sergio, both care about a lot is the efficiency. It
yep.
doesn't care about that thinking like that doesn't care about your efficiency. So the reason why I like to think about it in a per hour manner and why I've always done it this way is because of that efficiency. It takes into account efficiency, cost, like your earnings per mile, I think is probably another really popular way of doing it because again, that takes into account your efficiency. So I guess what I would say is whatever metric you use, you have to be thinking about your efficiency, right? So this would be period 1, even period 2, period
Yep.
3, right? Like you only make money when a passenger is in your car and wheels are moving. So
Absolutely.
anytime that's not happening, you want to minimize that. And anytime you've got a passenger in your car and you're moving, you want to maximize that. That's kind of really what it boils
Absolutely.
down to, basically. One thing I'd push back on, Sergio, though, you said you count from the time you leave your door till you get home,
Hmm.
which I think is fair. But for a lot of drivers, right, they can't afford to live in the areas where they drive, right? Like in LA, West Hollywood, Santa Monica, where all the action is, right? It's like the most expensive parts, multi-million dollar houses, right? So a lot of people live in the valley, down south, out in the Inland Empire, right?
I
So
do.
what if
I
you
live
had a
in the
different,
valley. I live in the
that's what I'm
valley,
saying
right?
though,
I'm
right?
like 32 miles from LAX. So
That's what
I'm
I'm
not
saying. A lot of,
exactly, yeah, I'm not
a
exactly in
lot
the hot zone.
Right.
So,
A lot of the big cities are like that, right?
yeah,
And people can't afford to live in them where all the action is.
yeah.
And so if you didn't drive for Uber though and you had a different job, a lot of the times your job would be in the city. If you were like let's say flipping burgers for McDonald's, right?
Yep.
Or maybe that's not the best example, but
No,
like,
I agree. I
some
agree.
like you would have to drive into the city. So like I think you can count it, but I also see it as like a little bit of a bonus. Like if you can monetize that time into the city and back out of the city, that's
Yeah,
kind of like you would normally have to drive that empty, right? Like if you worked a
that's
normal job in the city, and that's usually how it works. Like people
that's
live
when
far
the
away, work in the city. So
yeah,
that would be the only thing
yeah.
that it's like
But
I
that's
get
when the
counting
DFs
it,
come
but
in,
like
Harry.
don't
Four
count it against you
DFs.
too much.
That's when the four DFs come in. That's when
Right.
the 4DS come in. I mean, you got four, two on Lyft, two on, Uber. You got to, use the two Ubers in the city and then the Lyfts, maybe to get home or whatever. But that's what I do. I do schedule rides. I take advantage pretty much everything what they're offering me to get out of the hole that I'm in. I'm in
Yeah.
the valley. There aren't too many rides going to Santa Monica. Okay, how do I get to Santa Monica? Have a strategy and apply it. So, and Newman says, the guy that asked the same question, because I have been in LA market over 5 years. There you go. Exactly what you said. I only look at my goal and not coming home until I hit my goal. Well,
Yeah.
you can't drive like that. You drive like that. I mean, I'm glad you're persistent, but I don't think you could be a top driver doing that, because that's what actually Uber and Lyft want you to do. Yeah, set your goal in your app. When it hits, we'll give you a little bell. And I'm like, no, man, you're in it for you. You're not, I mean, I always say this and it gets pushback. I'm in it for me. I'm not in it for the passenger. I'm not in it for Uber. I'm not in it for Lyft. I'm not in it for anybody. I'm just trying to make the most amount of money in the least amount of time, period. You got to have that kind of a callous attitude.
Yeah.
That's me. Some people may be different. I don't know.
All right, thanks for watching. That short little clip was from our live stream, Show Me the Money Club with Sergio and myself, Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Make sure you subscribe, turn on all notifications so you'll be notified when we go live, as well as all of our awesome content. Make sure to check out this video right here, which will take you to the entire live stream, or check out this video right there. All right, drive smart, everyone.